So good morning, everyone. Just wanted to welcome you to today, and we're really excited. It's our 4th implementation training. So we've made it through, this will be the last of all the 8 content areas. So when this project first started, I'm like, it's going to, we put a lot of work and a lot of effort into it, and I hope that it's been beneficial. We've gotten some pretty positive feedback from the field. So thank you for that. If you guys ever have any questions related to the standards or implementation, or you need some more research behind them, please go ahead and reach out to myself and Jared and Emma and Jessica. Heather Adams that presented with the health standards at the very beginning. We've all been part of a collaboration team working to make sure that this information is given to both public providers, private providers, Head Start programs. And so and also wanted to let you know, in the future, we're planning on making this summer some Canvas courses. So if you're in kind of the director position, or even just as a coach, if you have new coaches that get hired within your district or new teachers that are in your programs, there'll be a Canvas course for teachers and also a Canvas course for coaches and administrators to get some more in-depth information to provide training for the standards. So those will be happening hopefully developed this summer, but that is our next steps. But please, if you guys have any information or have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to get back with you. You can see that Jared has put in the chat box, there's the sign-in sheet for today, and then there's also the Nearpod link. This presentation will be occurring in Nearpod. So if you could please click on that link, it would be greatly appreciated. It makes the presentation a lot more engaging for the participants. So I'm going to give that a couple minutes. I'll check in with you guys at 9:05, and then we'll go ahead and turn the time over to Emma for today's presentation. Is anybody because I see 28 people so far in the Nearpod, is anybody having difficulty that you may need support with? Some of you I know could be in the same rooms with other people too, so just wanted to double check and give you an opportunity to do that. And then Jared, just wanted to let you guys know, you are welcome to be on camera, you're welcome to be off camera. We understand it's a virtual world, right? So it helps when you're talking to please, if you'll turn on your camera and your video so that people can see and interact with you. But we also understand that with the digital world that most of us are in, sometimes it can be exhausting. So if you need to turn off your camera for a while, we understand that. Just also, Jared, would you mind talking to them about the numbering system for the districts for the breakout rooms?
Sure. So at the end of the training this morning, we'll give you a chance to use the material that Emma goes over this morning to plan professional development for the people in your program. We will have you work in your teams, and typically I'm organizing this by school district or by school if we have that information. So what I will be doing is, in a few minutes, I'll be putting in the chat box the list of numbers along, there'll be a number associated with your school or district. If you could, at that point, if you could change your name in the Zoom, you can do that by, if you hover over your picture, there's the 3 dots up to the side that you can click on, and then one of the options is rename. If you could put that number in front of your name, when we get to that point at the end of the training this morning, I can, as quickly and easily as possible, hopefully, fingers crossed, put you in groups with other people from your teaching teams so that we can give you that time to plan together.
And so, Jared, if you want to go ahead and put the numbers in the chat box now.
I'm working on them. I'm seeing.
Okay. So yeah, we'll do that before, we'll have a break, right? And when you guys go to break, then we'll come back and we'll have those numbers up, and then we'll be ready to go. Does that work?
That would be perfect. Thanks.
Perfect. Okay. So for many of you that may not be aware, Emma Munch has been part of our team. She works with the Department of Workforce Services, specifically the Office of Child Care. And so she has been part of this collaboration crew, and she's been great to work with. And she is going to be presenting fine arts for you today. So Emma, go ahead and turn you can introduce yourself to the group that may not know you, and we'll go ahead and get started.
All right, thanks, Jamie, and thanks, Jared, and thank you all for being here. I know it's a busy time for a lot of you, so we appreciate you being here, and for those subs being here as well, for those that are working on certain things for school. So like Jamie said, my name is Emma Monch. I'm the School Readiness Program Specialist at the Department of Workforce Services, Office of Childcare. So I work really closely with Utah State Board of Education, and we administer the Becoming High Quality Grant and the Expanded Student Access Grant. So I've had experience in the preschool sector as being an assistant teacher, a lead teacher, a coach, an ECAS 3 state anchor. And then I also have a master's degree in community and leadership, and that had an emphasis of early childhood. So my thesis and research was had that focus of early childhood. So that's just a little bit about me. And so today, obviously, we're going to be talking about fine arts, which I love. I've loved researching this piece. I consider myself to be an artist. I love to paint. I've started knitting. I love to draw. I love to write. And so I've always just enjoyed being creative. And so I know there may be some of you in here that consider yourself artists, that consider yourself, and some may not, but we all, I think, have the ability to be incredibly creative, whatever that looks like. And so I'm really excited to just collaborate and work with you today and hear your feedback and help you to support those teachers that you work with or the teams that you work with. So I just wanted to start off with kind of a little update or a little activity. And so you would need to sign on to Menti, www.menti.com, and you can also click on this link that's showing up on the screen. You would put in the code that you see under there, the 7774923, 32. And we're going to kind of have an activity of what makes quality fine art, what makes a quality fine arts experience. So there's going to be some questions in there. We want you to think about a positive childhood memory that you have of engaging in a fine arts experience, and then also a negative memory of engaging in a fine arts experience. And then we're going to compare the two word clouds and ask for a few volunteers to share their thoughts and their memories. And then also thinking about that from a child perspective of what makes a quality fine arts experience. So I think we have a couple of people that are not seeing the link. But Jared's putting the link and the code in the chat.
You should be able to just click on that link that's in the chat, and it should take you directly to this Nearpod. You shouldn't have to enter a code when you click on this link.
Is everyone signed on to Nearpod? And can you see the link as well on the Nearpod presentation? I wonder if, because I'm not sure if it's letting people provide like positive or negative. So maybe we can have a couple of people share some positive early childhood memories that they've had, maybe even just one experience that they've had that they remember from when they were a child. That would be really nice.
I'll share. This is Joan Cranny. You want me to share right now?
Yes, please, Joan. Thank you so much.
So I am not a fine arts person. I can't really even draw a stick figure. But when I was young, we had an activity. Several young girls. I was probably 12. We went to there was a lady that lived close by, and we met at her home, and she was an artist, and it was kind of like the classes you can take now where you can go and she taught us how to do a painting that had a tree. I didn't save the painting, but but it looked good. It's probably the only good art thing, but it was a very good positive experience for me. She walked us through step by step, and I know that's not early childhood, but that was probably my only good experience with art growing up. That is not my favorite thing.
I love the fact that you shared that and that you remember the details of the teacher kind of walking you through how, you know, kind of how to draw those things. And, you know, it sounds like at least that experience was positive, and you had a mentor and someone there to kind of help you and walk you through it and help you to feel comfortable. Because I know that can be really stressful for, I worked with kids that really love having that blank page and having that blank page for writing or for, you know, painting. And for other kids, it can be really an anxiety-filled experience because of that blank page. And so I get that. I do. I've experienced one little boy would get super anxious, especially when writing in his journal. And so that I would help to work with him and coach him. And once he got started, he was fine, but it really, really stressed him out. So thank you for sharing that.
I also think she had such a love. She very much loved art. And so her enthusiasm and her excitement and her love for that, it kind of passed on to us. I think if she would have been like, I'll do this. It was her all in her attitude. She had such an amazing, she was a very, very like frail little old lady, but she just had so much love for what she was doing.
That is wonderful, Joan. Thank you so much. I love that piece too. It was her passion and enthusiasm that helped you to feel safe and comfortable with something that you might not feel maybe safe around. And so I love that. Thank you. So would anybody else like to share?
I can. Mine's not in like the necessarily drawing side of the fine arts. My experience was in dance, but when I was in high school, like I really wanted to try out for the dance teams, but I was always like too scared to. I thought I couldn't dance, and then one of my friends, like they just really encouraged me to try it out, and I tried it out and I loved it. And like I moved up so fast into like an officer position, a coach position, like I ended up teaching it. And so it's been a huge part of my life, and I never would have tried it had I not had that positive encouragement to actually do it and try it.
That is amazing, Sydney. I'm kind of getting a theme from this that we've had like people in our lives that have been supportive. So yours, for example, were your friends. They were like, you can do this, you can go in, we believe in you, you can try out and be successful, and look at what happened with those positive people in your lives that kind of pushed you to do something that you were scared to do. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate you sharing that. And dance is something I love to. There's been a lot of things that I've been kind of afraid to do. I mean, one example was like, I moved to America when I was 16 and I didn't take sophomore gym. And so my senior year, I couldn't graduate until I could run around a track for 3 miles under a mile under a certain period of time. And I was not a runner, but I had good friends that helped me to do that. So I think I'm loving this theme of people supporting and helping you to kind of accomplish things. So thank you, Sydney.
Emma, do you have time for one more?
I always have time for you, Janae. And Janae is another person that has helped me to do things and to progress. She was my coach. So I've always got time for my amazing coach, Janae. So thank you.
This is my personal experience, but I'm thinking of my daughters, and I have one daughter who's an amazing artist, actually, in watercolor, oil, and I'm thinking of her experience, and You know how these preschool kids bring home all their artwork and stuff. You can't keep everything, but we did keep some really choice projects or things that she had done. And I think that that was encouraging, you know, as in their younger years to maybe choose a couple of just artwork or things that they have done. And I know that for her, she's doing that. She's got one little daughter who's 5, and the whole kitchen, one wall is covered with her art, you know, her artwork. And I think that that encourages, just that they're recognized that, you know, you look at what they've done and it's posted up and they see it. And I really think that encourages.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it really helps them to feel like their work is valued, don't you think? And I think similarly, I mean, this is something that Janae taught me in preschool when I was a teacher, was that, you know, the importance of posting students' work up on the wall at eye level so that it really is at their level, and there is conversations happening, ongoing conversations happening in the classroom where they can see, and that artwork is being rotated, and they have a portfolio that they can share with their parents, but also tracking progress and changing the artwork up and having it accessible to the students and having those conversations about, you know, their artwork. It makes them feel confident about that work and special and like it's worthy of being up on the wall and framed. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, Janae. Thank you. I appreciate you. All right, so I think we'll move on to today's objectives. So by the end of today, we want you to be able to, by the end of the session, we want you to be able to find evidence that supports the purpose and importance of teaching fine arts, articulate a basic understanding of the 4 strands of fine arts, prepare teachers to implement the fine arts standards in their classroom settings, and create a training that meets the needs of your teachers. So we really want to focus on those things. And the agenda that we have is, first of all, we're going to focus on just some of the research that are related to fine arts in the field. And then we want to have an understanding of the discipline of fine arts. We want to look at what's new in the fine arts, review practices for supporting learners, and then design professional development practices. So that's going to be the way that the agenda that we move forward with today. And so we're going to move into research related. So this, I will say before we start off on research, that we do have a section where it is going to be like the research piece. I'm going to be talking quite a bit, but we do have a lot of heavy, like interactive pieces that are a part of this presentation. So just bear with me. I kind of geek out when it comes to research. So I find this piece really, really interesting of what has been done and where the gaps are. So all right. So after this slide, we are going to work on a collaborative board. So I want you to think about the following question. So as I'm reading through some of this research, why do you think that there are so many challenges related to the arts in child development research, and also just development research within education? So this research on this slide comes from a professor of psychology and human development and family and science, and he works at George Mason University. His name is Adam Winsler. He has a PhD, and we're going to just talk a little bit about the causal effects, basically the research related to fine arts and the methodological conceptual challenges in arts and child development. And then we'll talk a little bit about the positive, kind of what we've seen in terms of positive research. So here we're going to be really just talking about the gaps. So ultimately, number one, there is pressure right now, has been for a long time, to show non-art benefits non-arts benefits to the arts. So understanding that if the arts are good for art's sake, so just for looking at the arts, just for art's sake. So the Professor Adam Winsler asks, why do we have to show why do we have to show that art is good for for certain things? So we don't ask people doing research on math to tie it to benefits in fine arts, right? We don't ask that for literature. So why, when we're looking at fine arts, do we have to tie it to, well, if you do this, it's good for it's good for mathematics, it's good for literature. It's kind of like we're trying to find an excuse for why we need to implement fine arts into the program. So that's a gap, that's a challenge, is that there are, that we have to kind of feel like we need to show that there are benefits to the arts in terms of it being tied to mathematics and literacy and gross motor skills, which is not a bad thing, but there is that pressure. We also need to be clear of number 2, that we're talking about the associations between participation and outcomes versus casual effects of the arts. So I'm just going to break that down a little bit. So casual effects focuses on controlled groups. And what he's basically saying in number 2 is that right now we have research of just kids that are participating in fine arts groups, and we're looking at those outcomes, but we're not ultimately looking at the casual effect. We don't have a lot of research on the casual effects, so casual effects ultimately means that we have controlled groups in a research program. So we have, let's say we're looking at students that have socioeconomic, come from families that are low income, right? So we would have group 1, group 2 that have the same socioeconomic status. This group 1 has a placebo, and group 2 has the treatment. And then we're looking at that same demographic, averaging out the outcomes and the difference. So right now it's really tough. Like there are not a lot of research. There's not a lot of research gaps, and there's issues in the research because we haven't had those casual effects research. We're just looking at kids that are participating in the arts and their outcomes, rather than really having a focus. So there needs to be he states that we need to have controlled experiments to show casual effects, which are rare in the field of fine arts. He says that it's tough to randomly assign students to school classrooms for a long period of time. So we often have quasi-experimental comparisons of naturally existing group sections. So kids who are exposed to the fine art programs versus those who are not exposed. So this raises a problem of selections where there are lots of systematic ways in which children are not exposed to the arts, and we need to understand and control them for statistically if we're trying to get a better causal effect of the arts and the outcomes. So there is a lack of research there. So when we're looking at research, a lot of that research, again, is just kids participating versus those who are not, and looking at those outcomes versus the controlled research projects. So number 3 is that we're limited in this area of research because we still have need for good, reliable, and valid measures of arts engagement and artistic outcomes and these processes and processes. And that limits us in the research data that we have. Another issue is that the idea of what we are looking for in any arts versus experience with specific form, we're really focusing in, when we do research, we're not looking at fine arts as a whole. We tend to do research in music, research in dance, research in drama and research in visual arts, etc. So they're very segregated when they're looking at research, and they're looking at the outcomes from those separate entities of the fine arts. Similarly, so number 5, there are issues of what we were looking for broad child outcomes. And so we need more longitudinal data. And then number 7, there is a need for qualitative understanding of what is actually going on during artistic experiences. So in addition, we need to be careful. We need to be careful of experimental work to isolate mechanisms of particularly art effects on the kids. And number 8, we need to deal and understand with the meaning of null findings. So I just want to make sure, Jamie, is everyone here? Because my Zoom moved.
You should still be on the research related fine arts screen. And the only reason, you guys, I'm sorry, I forgot to start sharing my screen at the very beginning. And because we are recording this, they may not have access, like they will have access to Nearpod as an asynchronous course, but also for recordings, it's best to have a screen for them to look at. So I apologize that if that threw off the balance at all. Okay, no problem. I just wanted to make sure we were still on and I wasn't just rambling on myself. So the last thing, number 8, is that we need to be comfortable with null findings or even negative findings. So for example, and this might seem like, well, we don't want to have a null finding or not have a result, or have a result. There's always results, but say that there wasn't any growth, or say there was negative growth, because that would show that the fine arts that we're focusing in on is kind of a negative thing, right? Well, sometimes we do an art program, we compare it to a non-arts program, and we see that there are no differences in whatever the outcome we are looking for. So it's important to know that this result is a strong contribution to the research literature, as we know that there are parameters of where we and when we see such efforts, and with measures, with which kind of kids, at which age. So it's also important for us to find out that if you only give like an extra 30 minutes a week of music classes, maybe that's not enough. So maybe the research is coming out as null or as negative, or not, we're not seeing growth because maybe that 30 minutes of a week of extra music classes just isn't the right dosage. And I know you might be thinking like, well, what does this research have to do with me teaching my teachers? But it is really important to be thinking about, like, why do we have such solid data for mathematics and solid data for literacy and solid data for science and technology and all of these hard skills? But in the soft, what they consider kind of the soft areas, skill areas, or we don't have this solid research that's being kind of focused in on. So now I want you to think of that question again, and I want you to think of, I want you to respond on the collaborative board and express why are there so many challenges related to the arts in child development research? After listening to this and listening to the fact that we don't have that solid data, why do you think that is? Okay, here we go. There is such focus on reading and math. Even history and social studies seem to take a backseat. Agreed.
It's more difficult to measure growth. Arts can be subjective. Yeah, people don't value arts as much as STEM, ELA, because it doesn't create industry, make money, boost the economy. Oh, I like that. You know, I think the focus is at times getting those kids into the workforce, and maybe we don't kind of value, you know, self-expression as much, or self-esteem, or creativity, or mental health, or cortisol levels when we're doing physical movement. I'll talk a little bit about that later. Maybe we don't look at like physical and creativity well-being. So focus on academics. Some people don't see the arts as much of a priority. So much advancement in technology and science and math, outcomes that we look for. Creative arts has not been valued in the same way other topics have been, seen something as fun rather than for development. Yeah. The fine arts cover a broad base of areas. Yeah, so it's really tough to measure that and maybe that's why the measurements happen in these different categories of what is called the fine arts, the different strands. The focus seems to be much more on academics than the fine arts take a back seat. All the focus is on academics area, academics. So I'm seeing a theme here, pattern of academics, not considered important, just seems to be something to fill in the time. The effects won't be the same for everyone. It's hard to measure growth because it's so personal. True. There's more emphasis on educational classes. Okay, yeah. Thank you. I'm trying to read the ones at the bottom, but I can't. If Jamie, could you scroll down? Okay, thank you. There's so much research on the core standards, it's much more harder to measure, more emphasis on academic needs. The effects won't be the same for everyone. Yeah, okay, great. Thank you so much. I think that all of these are ring pretty true as to why. Just, you know, a quick statistic on that, which might really surprise you, is that in 2016, the NAEP, which is the National Assessment for Educational Progress exam, this research collection demonstrated that the percentage of students who report visiting museum, gallery exhibits with their classes decreased from 22% in 1997 to 16% in 2018. Research shows that there has been a decline in visiting educational opportunities since the 1980s. This shows up in many research data sets. So for example, in 2008, research shows that African-American students were 49% less likely to receive arts education than they were in 1992. Hispanic students were 40% less likely to receive arts education, and children whose parents who have less than a high school education was 77% less likely to receive an arts education. And then there was virtually no change for white students. So that is really alarming data to me. We wouldn't have, without the arts, we wouldn't have Taylor Swift. No, I'm just kidding. We wouldn't have this amazing music and visual arts and dance and drama. And I mean, even if you're not creative yourself, there's so many ways in which we enjoy the arts. And so anyway, some research that has been related, which would be more of those research students that are in kind of the as I stated before, you know, we talked a little bit about participation and outcomes and causal effects. So these are more of like the participation outcome kind of positive things that come out of academics, fine arts academics. So we have positive academic and personal outcomes, favorable academic outcomes for students with lower socioeconomic status. We have lower cortisol levels. So there was a research done there's been a lot of research done, but there was a research where it was based out of Head Start, and they had focus groups on students where they showed when they were doing a dance, when they were working with dance more in their classrooms, and they did that every single day, and they had movement activities. The cortisol levels of those students by mid and end of year had decreased significantly. So we know that with those that have high levels of risk factors, their cortisol levels their stress levels are going to be higher, which causes a lot of issues during that time in their life and also into adulthood. And so they've seen lower cortisol levels. It strengthens the sense of self and peer connection. And then also it also has influence on community and neighborhoods. So our organizations can help to reduce neighborhoods and concentrated poverty, and it can attract other creative high-tech enterprises. So we're seeing a lot of various positive things that are happening. I'm not going to go through them all, but you have the PowerPoint, and I can send you the PowerPoint with notes and look through those things. But there are a lot of positive effects of being able to participate in the arts. So I'm going to move on to, yeah.
I was just going to add, like, I was just thinking about the comments, and this just keeps coming up, so I just wanted to bring it up. Like, we may not think that fine arts helps contribute to the workforce, right? But as an adult, which one of you really loves a well-landscaped yard that has a design? And which one of you benefit from interior design or designs that are in your house, or sculptures, or going to a museum, or enjoying some of the things that are out there? So I just wanted to make that comment.
I completely agree, because so many of us may think of ourselves as not creative, but there is creativity when you're working in a group of design. Like if you're working with designers who are working on a landscape project like Jamie was talking about, or if you go to Chicago or Boston and look at the way those cities are laid out, the people that created and planned out those cities are absolute geniuses. I mean, they're absolutely beautiful buildings, beautiful architecture. And same with if you're working in a group who's working for NASA, and who is working you're trying to resolve problems and math problems, or you're working through creating kind of a play together. These drama and these activities that we have help students to collaborate together. They help them to be work together with other students, which is really beneficial. There are so many other benefits other than just kind of being able to be creative and working on these different projects that come from the fine arts. So yeah, I appreciate that comment, Jamie, because it's very true. Jared?
Yes, so one of the things we need to recognize the underlying developmental process, what's going on when children and adults are producing art in any of these forms. Developmentally, what's going on is we're taking the internal, we have this vision or idea or this, something in our imagination, and bringing it to the external. So it's kind of foundational to the idea of representational thinking, which is, building across, content areas, that's foundational for being able to read and write, but also the whole idea of being able to think by being able to problem solve. How I have this idea about, I want to draw a cat. What am I going to do to get this internal image or representation that I have out on this paper? Or, similarly with dance or music, it's the same process. And so developmentally, as far as cognitive development, the benefit of art is huge.
Yeah, and that makes me think about, like, when you're thinking about lesson planning, really start to think about the ways in which you can obviously train and work with your teacher team and lesson plan together. But when you're lesson planning, teachers be thinking about ways of different activities that you can create for your students where they can use those problem-solving skills. I didn't add it to this, but there is a lot of research on the difference between, you know, the process versus, you know, having somebody, you know, tell you what to do in your artwork. So a craft versus like having the child go through a process of critically thinking, giving them an assignment, helping them through that assignment, working with them, meeting them where they are, and creating projects where they can show and work on their creativity and bring what's inside to fruition on the outside. So I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Jared. So the next piece is a study from Dr. David Sulamis and some other research artists from Australia.
There's a couple comments in the chat box.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Take a look.
They're just comments about kind of agreeing with some of the things. So I just didn't know if you wanted to draw some attention to that.
Okay, let me take a look. Okay. I think sometimes our comments, so Amy Anderlin said, I think sometimes our comments that it wasn't our favorite thing or I'm not creative is from it being taken away from us as young children. I totally agree. Did you know, Amy, that there's a study that I'm going to have to find this, but there's a study way back when where they looked at the creativity of students, and they said that it was like 98% of the kids had the ability to, I'm gonna have to take a look, but 98% of the kids were able to process and have a variety of processes of thinking and creativity. And by the time they were 12, I think it moved to about 10%. It had decreased so significantly. And so I think that is a very true statement. And we are all creative. We're just creative in very different ways, whether it's designing anyway, whether it's painting, whether it's having creative ideas, whether it's patterning a new idea. So art is not concrete science that can be measured. Heaven forbid children should use their imaginations. Yeah. Art is what humanity leaves behind to make connection with the past. It's what we're remembered by after we're gone. Yes. What if we didn't have Oscar Wilde and his amazing comments and literature? So yes, that's exactly what I was thinking as well, Jared. True. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out, Jamie. So this
sounded like somebody unmuted to make a comment. Was there another comment?
Oh, sorry.
Jana.
Yeah, this is Jana. To go along with Amy's comment and what you were just saying with those statements, I had such a negative experience in 5th grade with the arts, and a comment my teacher made to me about my artwork looking like a kindergartner's in front of the class. So it really did have an effect on my ability to think of myself as creative. And so
that is awful.
It's funny, it made me think of that today, but we do have to be careful what we do and say to kids. And maybe I really am creative and artistic, and I just didn't think I could be after that.
Yeah, I think that I do believe that everybody has a creativity. I just think it is something that is kind of taken away from us as we grow older and as we're kind of conforming to what society is expected of us. And that's terrible. I've had adults say things to me as well, and when I was a kid, and it really affects you. And I think that as an adult looking back, you know, I always wonder if that was something to do with more about like what they couldn't do. Maybe it was something they were projecting, because you don't say those things to children. You know, and we'll talk a little bit about, we've got a little critique cookie, and it's a positive way of responding to people's creativity. So thanks for sharing that.
Sorry, it looks like Tori also has a comment.
Yes, I do. I just, on a positive note, my daughter was young, and this is more about a story about her, but when she was young, I just felt like there was something about her that I couldn't unlock, and I didn't know how to do that. And so I thought, well, maybe let's just try some different activities and we'll see what happens. And I started her in some dance classes. And there was one particular teacher who was able to truly unlock my daughter. And it's been amazing. And she has danced for 12 years now, and she is one of the most beautiful dancers I've ever seen. And because of that, that was her outlet. That was her way of balancing the very difficult frustrations that she's had with dyslexia and a lot of discord as far as her academic learning, but that was her out. That was what balanced her and gave her the ability to work really hard in academics and then have that resting moment, if you will, if you can imagine that with dance, in her brain, where she wasn't focusing so hard on working and learning and right? So then she had that other piece that really did make a difference for her. And she is doing great in school, and she continues to dance almost 20 hours a week. So it really is a balancing out that we have to do. And I think exactly what Jared was saying, it's what you can take from the inside and be able to express it and put it out into a more visual, physical form for other people to see, whether it's auditory or anything like that. But it really does. I have a perfect example of my daughter in that exact realm.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, there's two things that pop up. So the importance of teachers and their ability, like teachers have the ability to bring out the best in what's inside of students. Like the teachers we know teachers are so important. And number two, I'm watching a program on Disney called On Point, and it's about ballet and the students that they bring in. And it's interesting because they express themselves as, this is what I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. I want to be able, this is the way I'm able to express myself, is through movement and through my body.
I never would have imagined my daughter getting up on stage in front of hundreds of people by herself, dancing this beautiful dance and competing and things like that. But she does it, and she gets up there, and it's like she goes into her own little world, and that's where she is comfortable. So
that's incredible.
It seems odd, but it's amazing to see it happen.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So we're gonna move on to this video. Sorry.
So it looks like Amy has her hand raised too. I know that we need to move on, but yeah, there's another comment.
Oh no! You know what? Hey, Amy, we'd love to hear from you.
Sorry. When I was listening to her talk, it made me think of two things. Like we think of in the Reggio Emilia approach, the 100 languages of children.
Yeah.
And our kiddos that come in that are maybe nonverbal. Like, how do we represent like them? It may not be through the spoken language, but can we look at what they're doing in art and see that is expressing themselves through that language that is just as important? And then a while back, I went through a really traumatic family event. My brother had committed suicide, and my family went to therapy and all of this stuff. And I went to this counselor, like I was struggling to find something that was working. And I went to this new counselor, and she told me that there's a piece of our brain when we've gone through something traumatic, that if we can apply a level of creativity, that it helps our brain to process that trauma out and to work through something. And so I had to think, I'm not creative. How am I going to get this trauma out through working through creativity? But ultimately, finding something that I could work through helped me to cope with that trauma. And where so many of our kiddos are in trauma right now, how do we apply that into our classrooms to make sure that we're allowing that creative process for them to work through some of the trauma they're experiencing in their lives?
Yeah, we need to be thinking about all students, and thank you for sharing that, because we, again, we have students that have experienced trauma, students that are, you know, typical developing, and some that are not, and some that come from various backgrounds. Maybe they are refugees, and helping them to feel, I think, safe in a certain space is when they're able to represent what's happening. Like, I like to use Jared's phrase of like what's happening inside, and personifying that in, you know, through creativity, and allowing them to have those various ways in which they can express themselves. And so this is all so important. So I appreciate all of you for sharing your experiences, and look forward to hearing more as we go through the presentation. So thank you, and thanks Amy as well for sharing that. So the next piece is basically this research was run through the Australian government and Artists in Residence initiative, which is ultimately a research project that occurred in 2013. It focuses, it is Australian, but you know, these are kids. They're not looking explicitly at early childhood kids. They're looking at a variety of kids. So, you know, keep that in mind. But they're talking to us about the results that they found. It's a study based on 643 primary and secondary students from 15 schools over the course of 2 years. And so even though the focus isn't on early childhood, the outcomes of the research demonstrate the importance and many benefits of arts participation. So for this, you're going to be watching this video on your own, just so that it runs clearly. And you have, I believe we gave them 4 minutes to look at the video, and then use the Jamboard to be able to think about and answer the following questions. So the Jamboard will have those questions for you. So we want you to think about how are fine arts currently implemented in your program, and what are your goals surrounding the fine arts standards. So if you want to take the time to watch this video, I'm not going to present it. So if you can watch it on your own time, and then come back and then respond to those questions, that would be great.
And to access the video, it's up in the corner of your Nearpod screen. Click on it and it will open up the window to view the video.
Okay, so I'm just going to read some of these out while we've got participants typing. So under the share anything from the study that you found interesting, one of them says students understand the show and why, and being able to express to others. It really seems like more focus on the arts would help the overall growth of students. Help students discover why and the meaning of why things are done. I love this. Yeah. Students who participated in the arts were found to be more academically engaged. That is really incredible and very, very interesting. Students were at the center of the arts creating process. I love that they were the ones being able to problem solve, process, and work together and create. I love that they put fine arts first and realized the importance of it in helping children focus. It always allowed students to be confident, show pride, and learn and grow. Arts are their focus, yeah. What benefits would preschool students gain with this type of teaching approach? It would hopefully make art more accessible to all students. Jamie, would you read out the first one? Blue tab on the left.
Yes, it says we would reach more students if we broadened our curriculum. And the one below it says engagement.
Great, thank you. Help the children focus and learn to be persistent in learning. Yeah, I love that because it teaches, not only does it teach them creativity and critical thinking, it teaches them as well, like when things, you know, are tough, that they are able to persist those things. They're able to move forward and continue, even if maybe something doesn't creatively come easy to them, they're still working through it and problem solving. Other domains are embedded into the arts. The study shows that students gain more academic skills because of fine arts and being involved, plus it helps them to express themselves. It is how people discover the world. Yes. It would allow them to express themselves in a larger variety of ways. Maybe one fine arts way speaks better to them. Yeah. Connection to other content areas. Art can be a collaborative process with preschoolers and creates and shares connection with group and others in the group. Emotional regulation and expression in healthy ways and creativity. Wonderful. Yes, thank you. So I think this study, everybody sees how this study is so important to the research and the findings and why the arts are so beneficial and having this type of teaching approach. So thank you for sharing. I think before we move on to the next section, we've been in for an hour. So I think that we're going to take a break. Jamie, do you know how long the break is going to be?
I would take 10 minutes.
Okay, so let's take 10 minutes and we'll be...
And, yeah, as we're going to the break, let me put in...
Jared, you just muted yourself.
Okay, yes, I was trying to hit enter in the chat box to send this, but instead it muted me. I just posted in the chat box numbers next to programs that have more than one person registered for this training. So if you could, if you're here with your team in those groups, if you could change in the name, yeah, your name that's viewed here in Zoom, if you could change your name to put that in front of your name, when we get to the planning time at the end of the training, that will help me to put into the breakout groups. Now, if you're with other people on your teaching team in the same physical location, and so you don't need the shared space, don't put a number by your name. That's fine. Also, if you're the only person from your group who is here, so you don't have anybody else to join, if you'd like to join with somebody, just send me a private message in the chat, and I can create that breakout room for you. But otherwise, you can just leave the number off too. So the number is for you to put in front of your name if you want to or need to be put into the same breakout room for planning at the end of the session. And if you have any questions, please just message me in the chat and I'll be glad to work through that. But I would really appreciate that. Will make things a lot easier when we get to that point in the presentation. So with that in mind, let's break.
See you at 10:17.
Okay, I'm thinking everybody's coming back from a break now. It's 10:18. All right, I think we're good to come back. All right, so I hope you enjoyed your break and was able to kind of walk around and move your body a little bit. So the next piece of this presentation is going to be a collaboration or just a kind of fine arts introduction. So from the standards. So I would like for you to click on the fine arts introduction link. You can scroll down to page 4. And then I'd like for you to report back on how adults can support learning in fine arts. So we just watched the video of how implementing the fine arts can be beneficial to students. So now if you could read over that fine arts intro and just come back, and we can use the next activity to be able to talk about how to kind of answer those questions. So we'll give you until about 10:23 to read through the introduction, and then we're gonna come back and report back out on how do you support your children's growth in fine arts. Okay, I'm seeing some responses come in, so I'm going to start reading through them. So it says, and don't worry, you've got until 10:23, so we'll wait until then. So we have give lots of opportunities to participate in fine arts activities, a lot of exposure to different types so they find what they enjoy. Lots of music play and puppet shows. Don't worry about the mess. Yeah. Allow them to be creative and by providing open-ended art activities. I love that. Utilize simple songs and repetitive beats, create space and acceptance. It's the process, not the end result. Would you mind scrolling down, please, Jamie? Oh, here we go. Self-expression through movement and art, being creative, allow acceptance of others through the process. Singing, and more singing. Dance parties, setting up a stage for plays, different dramatic themes. Provide them with a variety of different materials. Provide many abstract objects they can make up for their own way to create. Art Center is open every day with a variety of materials available. This gives them the opportunity to work with things they like. Love that. Dance and movement activities prior to seat work. Help to understand. It doesn't have to look perfect, that this is about having fun. I like that, because I had another student who really was, I don't know what else to call it, but like he would have a hard time starting things because he wanted it to be, I guess, perfect, and he didn't know how to begin, and he would get a lot of anxiety. It's the same student I was talking about earlier, but he would get a lot of anxiety over spelling things correctly, and this was preschool. He knew how to spell and write in journals and things like that. So he would have a hard time with art when that blank paper was kind of in front of him, and it caused internal anxiety. So I think understanding our students and working with them and helping them to in the ways that they need, and teachers do that best. Teachers really have the ability to discern and to help, and through data, obviously, but to be able to really help and work with their students in a variety of different ways. So opportunities to explore art, display their art and talk about it, have conversations with children and learn their preferences. Yeah, focusing on the process of art. We need to provide more types of art, though, I think. Yeah. Encourage and participate in conversations that let children express their ideas and then follow through on those ideas. I love that, because that also helps with their oral language abilities, to be able to express themselves in various different ways. And then singing time, musical interest, allowing creativity and movement. Again, the movement piece, which Jessica will talk a little bit more about today in her physical exercise and engagement activities. But yeah, those movement activities really do help with those cortisol levels and stress levels, if they're able to have those opportunities to move their bodies and bring that stress down. So yeah, thank you for your input and your feedback. I appreciate your thoughts, and I'm really excited to see and to hear about what you come up with in terms of lesson planning with your teachers. So the next slide, this is our little critique cookie. So it's kind of hard to see. For me, it is. I don't know if it is for you. I wear glasses and it's still hard for me to see on the screen. So I added kind of the constructive feedback that we should be giving to anybody, to anybody that we we give creative feedback to, right? So the first piece of it goes through a little diagram before we're even thinking about giving a feedback, right? And so I'm going to walk you through this method, and then we are going to have some creative time. So for those of you that might not think consider yourselves to be creative, there is going to be a little bit of creative time. So I apologize for that. But then we'll bring this up for reference. So ultimately, this is the creative cookie, and it says like, how do we critique art? How to critique art? So it asks the question, did the artist ask for my opinion? No. So if they didn't, they ask, do you like it? And if you say no, if the artist asks, do you like it? And you don't, you keep that to yourself. So the example that that was given earlier about the teacher making the comment about, drawing like a kindergarten and humiliating and embarrassing, that was not appropriate to, obviously we know that was not appropriate to give that kind of feedback. And it really does humiliate and embarrass, and especially in front of other peers, right? So then we move on to if the artist asks, do you like it? And the person says yes. And then it says, say something nice, like, I like it, or keep it to yourself. So you want to say something nice. So if they didn't ask for your opinion, if they do ask for your opinion, and you and they say, did the artist ask my opinion? Yes, they did. So are you sure that they're really asking for your opinion? If yes, then you use the critique cookie. And the text on the left-hand side is actually the critique. So you would share something that you like about the piece, and then you go back, sorry, Jamie, and then you would provide information about line, color, shape, form, texture, value, rhythm, movement, balance, variety, contrast, harmony, pattern, composition, subject matter, what type of materials they use, their intention, it says, it's supposed to say how it personally affects you or moves you, and then close your construction feedback by sharing something you like about the piece or the effort that they've made. And so rather than saying, oh, I really like that, now go and put it in your cubby. And obviously we know these things, but I think this critique cookie gives us some more examples of things that we can focus in on, like, I love your rhythm, I love your movement and the way that you're balancing right now, and the way I love the shapes that you're using. What kind of shapes are you using? Tell me about the texture. What type of materials did you use for this? So not only are you talking and talking about their work, you're engaging them back into their own work, and they're able also to practice their oral language skills as they're responding to you. So, so the next piece that we're going to do is we're going to be creative. We're going to think about this creative cookie, and we can share your art if you want us to. If not, then we're going to show some samples. But ultimately, this next piece is we're going to listen to a sound creature. It's a sound creature drawing activity. So we're going to use that sound to inspire a drawing. So there are different sounds to choose from. So I'm going to pick a sound. And your challenge is to draw a creature that is inspired by the sound that you hear. What does it look like? What does it sound like? Is it big or small? Is it real or imaginary, or a bit of both? Where does it live? Does it have a superpower? And then any other questions that you can think of. And then what I want us to do is you would use the draw it link to draw your pictures. And then I'd like for some of you to volunteer to use the critique cookie to give feedback. And this is kind of the activity that we would want teachers to use on students too, right? Like we want to be able to help students think about how they can give feedback to other students too. Like, I love the material that you used, and here's why. So I'm going to click on this sound creature, and then I'm going to pick a sound, and then I want you to listen to the sound, and then you will draw it. and then we'll give some feedback. All right, so the next piece I think is we're going to move to the drawing board. So I'm going to play the sound again so you can hear it as you draw. All right. Okay, so I think that
there's a couple minutes left, and then we've still got some drawings that are coming in.
Okay,
and so
perfect.
After about 2 to 3 more minutes, then I'll start sharing some of the drawings. And Emma, do you want me to just select 1 or 2, or how many do we want to use the critique cookie on?
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 is fine.
There's amazing artwork going on in there.
We can scroll through them so we can see them, and then maybe, I don't know if somebody wants to volunteer. We don't know which one is which though, right?
It actually does have the names down at the bottom.
Oh, maybe we ask them to see if they want to, if we have one person that wants to volunteer.
Anybody wants to put in the chat box if they want to volunteer for me to share their artwork. And if you guys don't mind, if there are any strong objections to me just giving you guys like a small review and looking at the different creatures that were created, I think it would be a fun experience. So unless there's strong objection, I will go ahead and do that. Okay, so you have about 40 seconds to finish your artwork, and then I'm switching screens.
Oh, I love these. Oh, they're fantastic. So creative. Wow. Isn't it incredible how everyone interprets that sound so differently? Yep. Love it. Oh, yeah.
And I believe that there are some comments.
I drew a dragon because the sound reminded me of the dragon from Pete's Dragon. Yeah.
And then there are some comments in the chat box. If anybody would be willing to have us use the critique cookie on their drawing, I'll leave that up for display.
Underwater creature. Okay. Would anybody like to volunteer their masterpiece, and we can do a critique? And
I'm having a hard time getting my chat box to pull back up. So if one of you wants to just let me know what's in the chat and I'll pull it up.
So this is just people. So people are just saying that they some couldn't figure out how to get it to work, and then some said that they didn't have any objection of sharing.
So give me a name.
All right, who's going to be brave enough to give us?
Jamie, you can do mine. This is Tori.
Thank you, Tori.
I couldn't make my thing go fast enough, so it's not done, but I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Do you want to tell us? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your work, Tori?
Well, if I was doing this with actual tactile pieces, I would have used a googly eye, first of all, because it just reminded me of a big blob. And I saw there was other people's that it also reminded them of a blob monster of some sort. But on the bottom, it's supposed to be like some kind of a gear or a conveyor belt kind of track. And it's this blob monster machine robot guy who is going back and forth creating something.
Nice. All right, I want to hear other people's critiques. And it's constructive feedback. So we can do line, color, shape. I love the color, and I love the way that you explain that he has or she has a little track underneath, and that helps him to move, right? Okay. Yes. Is he holding something?
Probably, possibly. I need more time for my art.
I love the line that comes across from under his chin to around the back. It almost kind of reminds me of like a space helmet to help him to breathe. Although if he was an alien, he wouldn't need a space helmet. But I like that white space behind the blue, and it just reminds me of something that he has like to protect his face. I love the subject matter that you've used. So the sound kind of reminded you of something that you would maybe get something maybe from outer space. Is that what you said? Or maybe that's what I'm kind of interpreting it as, but some type of a creature that lives potentially somewhere else. Yeah, it's interesting because we had some people submit a dolphin, like something that is tangible, something that we can understand, because you know, to me, I can understand why they picked a dolphin, but then other people also picked like maybe a robot, and you picked something as well that was not kind of from this world. And so I think either way, what was chosen, there's still creativity happening there. There's still line, there's still shape, there's still patterns that are happening. And there's a story. There's something in your mind when you heard that sound created a story, and it sparked your imagination to create something. So thank you for being brave enough to share, and thank you for letting us critique. Does anybody else have anything to add?
I was just going to add, you kind of said it, Emma, but I liked how it had a purpose. Like, you had this whole storyline going on behind your blue blob of a figure. It wasn't just, oh, it's just a monster because I just draw monsters. Every time I see something, I just draw a monster. Like, you had a purpose. He had a story. Like you said, he was like making stuff or like inventing things. Like, even though you ran out of time, you probably would have added these in. Like, I can see your blob on a mission. Like, he has a purpose, and I liked that about it.
He does. It's a great purpose too.
Thank you for your critique. Looks like Maggie said you can see the movement in him. You can. Would anybody else like to share or share a critique? Okay, all right, well, thank you very much. Thank you. We appreciate all of your drawings were fantastic. It was good to be able to focus in on one. So those are the things that when you're taking this back to your team and to your teachers, that you're, you know, when you're giving back critiques, have them think about, and I'm sure they already do, but having them think about the ways in which they can, you know, give feedback and provide a wide variety of examples of why you like their work, and help them to use this critique cookie too. It helps expand their vocabulary. It helps them to expand their oral language. It helps them to think about why they're drawing the things that they are, or also expressing what they feel when they see that somebody else's image, what it makes them feel, how it moves them. So those types of things. So here are the 4 strands. We're now at the 4 strands of the fine arts standards. So we have dance, drama, music, visual arts. So over the next few slides, we're going to look over some of the definitions of each strand. So I'm going to ask for 4 volunteers to read a definition for each strand. So after the definitions, we are going to break into groups and work on an exploration activity, focusing on these 4 strands. So if you wouldn't mind, we're going to start off with drama. So if somebody would volunteer about reading through that definition, please.
I will. Drama provides opportunities for children to portray a variety of events, characters, or stories through taking on different roles, interacting with props, and engaging in dramatic interactions. Children explore roles individually, collaboratively, when acting out experiences and observing the dramatic expression of peers and teachers.
Thank you so much. All right, who's up for dance?
I'll do that. All right. Dance provides children the opportunity to use their bodies to move to music and express themselves through movement.
Thank you. Who would like to volunteer for music?
I can do music. Music offers students the opportunity to learn songs, create music, develop self-expression, and build cultural understanding with self and others.
Thank you very much. And finally, visual arts.
I can do that one. Visual arts provide sensory, expressive, and social opportunities through the use of various media and materials to create drawings, pictures, or 3D art.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Okay, so now we're going to break into groups and work on the exploration activity, which of the 4 fine art standards that we just read. So I think we've got that up and going, or we will do at some point. So since there are 4 strands, there are going to be, and there are obviously 4 strands and then 2 age groups, 3 and 4. And we have standards that are developmentally appropriate for 3 and 4-year-olds. We're going to break you up into groups by different strands and by age group. So we're going to have, so ultimately, room 1 is going to be strand 1, and it's going to be for 3-year-olds. Room 2 is going to be strand 1, which is drama, and it's going to be for 4-year-olds. Room 3 is going to be strand 2, which is going to be dance for 3-year-olds. Room 4 is going to be strand 2, which is dance for 4-year-olds. Room 5 is going to be strand 3, which is going to be music for 3-year-olds. Room 6 is strand 3, which is music for 4-year-olds. Room 7 is strand 4, and that's going to be visual arts for 3-year-olds. And room 8 is going to be strand 4, which is visual arts for 4-year-olds. Now, I know that's, you don't need to remember that. So that the document is going to have your room and the strand that you belong to and the age group that you belong to. So you'll be able to see quickly when you're moved into a room, which room you're going to. Also, if that disappears, just look up on your top left-hand side of the corner, and that will tell you your room. And then you're going to connect your room to the strand and age group. So you have 12 minutes to just work together in your teams. And this is going to be, at the end of this, you're going to have all 4 strands for all age groups. And it's going to be a resource for you all to take away and use to train your teams.
Okay, are you ready for me to send them to breakout groups?
Yes, please. Thank you.
And when will we be coming back from breakout groups? How long for this activity?
12 minutes.
Yeah, we have 12 minutes.
Okay, here go the breakout rooms.
Okay, I think people should be, it looks like people are coming back in to the room from their breakout groups. So could we have a representative just for, maybe we'll just do if we could just have everybody come, like just maybe give a debrief, like a really brief debrief, because I know that we're kind of running short on time on the different strands. So we'll start off with drama. If somebody wants to kind of give a bit of a debrief of what they talked about in their groups. You don't have to go through every single piece, just kind of the biggest kind of takeaway.
I can do it. Go ahead. So for drama, for 3-year-olds, a lot of it is just kind of role playing, and mainly it's the dramatic play area. The kids can pretend to be different characters. They can use the props that you have. They love doing things that adults do. They love to pretend to be adults. So lots of fun props, even old-fashioned props. Like we had teachers that brought in old telephones, not even rotary, but just like the old push-button phones. And the kids thought that was amazing. And so they love doing things that they see grown-ups do, and it's a safe environment where they can try things out. And then they also like to express their own interests. So sometimes you'll put a prop there and you'll think it's a telephone, but the kids might pick it up and use it as something else. So they can kind of bring in their own interests. And it's also a really good thing to help with like social situations. So when kids are at 3, they're kind of starting to learn to play together, but they don't really know how to ask, hey, can I play? Or, do you want to play with me? So you can do role-playing things in front of the whole group and then let the kids try it out. So that's kind of what we did.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Do we have anyone that wants to add to that drama strand piece? If not, we can move to dance. So who from dance, from the 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds would like to, or is willing to just kind of share some takeaways?
Okay, I will share. Oh, did someone else want to go?
Oh, you can go ahead, Audrey.
Okay. So it just allows children the opportunity to use their bodies and move to music and express themselves through music. And it allows children to experiment with rhythm, and some of the more wiggly kids, it allows them to move their body and get their energy out. And it allows kids to explore different kinds of music, and also promote their motor balance and their large and small motor movements, and coordinate like both sides of their hemispheres on their motor strip, and also like maintain body space and be appropriate with other people in the classroom, and also just expressing how they're feeling and their emotions, and use movement to do that.
Great, thank you so much, Audrey. And thank you, Michonne, as well for your feedback as well for the first strand. All right, do we have anybody else that would like to add to the music strand?
I can go for the music strand. We had talked a lot about just how music is much more engaging sometimes, and it helps them learn new information, but also helps them remember information that they may not know. Our group did the 3-year-olds, so we talked about how a lot of 3-year-olds can sing the ABCs even if they don't know exactly what letters are or be able to point out letters. So it's just a really good way to expose children to new information, helps them learn new information while making it really fun and engaging.
Great, thank you so much, Chelsea. Thanks. All right, the final strand, visual arts.
I can go for visual arts. So we talked about how visual arts is, it's a good way for the kids to express themselves. It's a good sensory thing. It hits really good in fine motor. We talked about how like teachers, they'll have to like model how to use the certain tools within like an art center, but we don't want to like overstep ourselves and completely take over the child's creativity. So we were talking about kind of like that fine line of how to be supportive for the child to help them create their artwork, but not necessarily tell them how to do it. So that's kind of the stuff that we talked about for visual arts.
Great, thank you so much, Sydney. Thank you. All right, well, you can use this again as a resource to kind of help you with these strands. And I think that now we're going to move into some lesson planning time. Since you've been coming to I think most of you have been coming to these sessions. I was going to kind of go through the form, but I think you're all familiar with the form, and the form, it just goes over the questions that I was going to run through anyway. So if you wanted to click on the link, so I think that needs to be presented for the PD planning. So you'll, great, thank you, Jamie. So I think we're going to give you about 15 minutes, and I know normally you have around, should we do 15 or 20? I think we only have 15. So if you take 15 minutes of the fine arts lesson planning time, so you'll have access to, that's the link that you're going to be using, and you'll be working with your teams. So just click on that link. I do have some resources on the slide 39 for the future. If you, or I think, and Jamie can pull those up too. But just take that time to do some lesson planning, and then we'll just come back for the last 5 minutes to talk about next steps and assignments, and then to kind of go over the objectives again. Sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
Jared, do you have a second to go in and change the request access for that document?
Sure, yes. Okay, so it should be accessible to everybody, but it's not editable. So when you go to that, to the resource, if you could download a copy on your computer so that you can edit it for yourself. Yeah, so it's different from the previous one where everybody could edit the same document. You can access it, but yes, please do download it so that you can use it for planning your own professional development.
And Jared, if they're in their own breakout sessions, they can download it and then someone can present in those rooms, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so everybody will be able to see the documents if one person is willing to share their screen and share that document with everyone.
Correct. Okay, and so if you did not put a number in front of your name, then I assume that means that you're planning on your own or you're in the physical space, and so I'm not sending you to a breakout room. But everybody that did put a number by their name, you should be, if all works well, grouped into the same planning room. Okay, are we ready to send them to the breakout groups now? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Jared. Okay, I think everyone is back in the main room. I hope you had some planning time. I know it's not as much as we anticipated. So let's just go over some next steps before we close this meeting that we have. So next steps and assignments for USB credit. Firstly, so we'd like you to finish your PD lesson planning template form for delivering fine arts standards implementation training in your program. And then we'd like you to deliver the training to your staff, either all staff, PLC, coaching, virtual training, etc. And then complete the PD implementation reflection. So you can see that's a link right here that you can click on, activity. And then 4, if you could submit all documents in the Canvas assignment Dropbox in the fine arts section of the standards implementation Canvas course page. And I believe you know what the timeline is for that. And if not, I believe Jared has that timeline. Okay, so just to go over today's objectives again, by the end of this session, you should be able to find evidence that supports all the purpose and importance of teaching fine arts. So we went into those different strands today, and we're able to look at that evidence and implement those, and then also with the PD training as well, and lesson planning, sorry. So articulate a basic understanding of the 4 strands of fine arts, and then prepare teachers to implement the fine arts standards in their classroom settings, and then create a training that meets the needs of your teachers. So hopefully those things were met today. I think this last piece, third bullet point, of preparing your teachers to implement the fine arts standards in their classroom settings, and then creating trainings. Again, there's references on the next page if any of the research interests you. There's a great arts and participation in student academic outcomes webinar that was really great, and in the first reference. So anyway, you can go to any of these references that you think might be helpful. And then I created a resource page and get provided a couple of resources for each strand to maybe help you with lesson planning. And so hopefully those provide a little bit more support, and I'm sure that you have a lot of resources as well that you can tap into for your teachers. And then we have our credits, and I just want to thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your participation, your passion, and I appreciate your comments, and for just being willing to be open and vulnerable. I know sometimes sharing can be difficult, and I appreciate and can make you feel a little bit vulnerable sometimes with the types of things that we're sharing. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you for being here and just being willing to share. So thank you. I don't know if you have any questions. We have a minute until this session finishes, but I just wanted to say thanks and open it up to all of you if you have any additional questions.
Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, thanks, Jeannie. I was just going to say it's been amazing. It was so much fun to have the conversations about allowing yourselves to realize that this is important for our children and it's important for our students. And we want to give you permission to implement these standards and to implement playing imagination with your students. Our next session this afternoon does start at 1 o'clock, and it should be the same login information. And if you guys don't have any questions, you're welcome to leave, but we'll stay on to see if there are any.